I-25 had a twin brother. He looked exactly the same as me, but he hit the gym a little bit more. My wife 25 I got married at the age of 20 because when we met we knew we were meant to be together. I guess you could say it was as true as we believe love could be. That made us both naive young fools. Since then, my brother developed a passion for working out. I developed my passion for computer technology. My wife and I had lots of hobbies. We did together including painting miniature figurines, building trains and miniature landscapes and tennis. None of that mattered to her. We went to a family gathering one Thanksgiving. I didn't know it at the time, but she'd already started talking to my brother behind my back. Don't ask me why my brother didn't tell me what was going on. It still hurts me to this day. After we all ate dinner, we mingled around the house while football was on and I got caught up in a conversation with my uncle about the different players. It was probably 40 minutes before I realized my wife wasn't around as I looked around. I started noticing my brother's absence because I thought about finding him to ask if he'd seen my wife. I even looked around outside before I decided to look in the basement of all places. As soon as I opened the door, I could hear someone immediately stop making a sound. I walked down the stairs and heard shuffling before I peeked my head below the ceiling. My wife and twin brother were standing side by side awkwardly fixing their clothes while they avoided eye contact with me and trying to explain what they were doing. The guest bed right beside them looked like it was freshly made before they got down there. I asked them point blank if they were just having sex. My wife's face turned red and she very guiltily said, "No." My twin brother also said no. But then he told me they were. My wife slapped him on the shoulder saying he was going to cost us our marriage if he said it was the truth and I deserved to know. My wife started crying and saying no over and over, not wanting to believe this was happening. She finally asked me if it was really that big of a deal because he's my twin. So it just proves she loves the same person. My jaw dropped. I couldn't believe she thought this could be justified by the fact that my brother and I were twins. I started yelling at this point and said, if anything, it just made her more of a stupid bimbo for deciding to cheat on me. My brother apologized to me and said he was going to attempt to rekindle our relationship sometime in the future after this blew over. I couldn't believe what was happening. I let him leave without saying a word, just staring at my wife. I asked her again why she slept with him if he was my twin. She said that since he worked out, he looked really great. And when he came on her, he was the one that said it would be like she was sleeping with her husband. My jaw dropped again and I started pacing in the basement. Our whole family was upstairs and they needed to know what just happened. I started marching upstairs and my wife screamed for me to stop and just keep it between us. I laughed loudly and sarcastically. When I got upstairs, it didn't take much to get everyone's attention. They were all staring at me as I explained that I would appreciate all of their support while I go through the next stage in my life, which was going to include divorce and no contact with my twin brother because I just caught the two of them in the basement. Everyone let out their own reactions to the news, but everyone reached out to give me hugs and apologize. People started asking where my brother went and someone said he left already. That was fine. Let him isolate himself from the family to avoid the awkwardness of the situation. Now, my wife was still in the basement. Far too embarrassed to come out on her own. Some of the women in the family went down to talk to her, hopefully reprimanding her more than anything. She came out with a reddened face and dried tears on her cheeks. She walked straight to her car. I moved in with my uncle and my ex stayed in the apartment with both our names on the lease for 1 week before she found out she was pregnant. There was no way to know for sure whose baby it was since she was sleeping with me and my brother. Within the same week, she admitted to me that they had sex 3 times. The 3rd time was when I caught them. She said, although they didn't use protection, she doubted the baby could be his. I've decided to be involved with the child to accept him as mine and co-parent with my ex. She isn't going to file for child support due to the circumstances and at least the child won't ever have to hear arguing about who their real dad is. My brother just continued his life as normal minus family and is refusing to be involved in his potential child's life. It's devastating that I lost a twin brother from all of this. We essentially don't know each other anymore. If I'm to look at the bright side of things, I'm glad that I started working out and found my new hobby of rock climbing. That's where I met my new girlfriend who has yet to break my trust. We enjoy spending time together, that's for sure. And that's all I could ask for. Please people understand that sleeping with your spouse's sibling is not acceptable. And if anything, it hurts even more because it was someone they trusted deeply. Wow, you had a very inconsiderate and self-centered wife. She did not consider your feelings at all when she chose to sleep with him, whether he tried to persuade her or not. She needed to be the honorable woman. You thought you could trust it was her chance to prove how a wife should behave. When presented with temptation, she failed miserably. I am relieved that you had family support and knew better than to try to work it out after something like this. The relationship is over and you're going to be much happier when you meet someone who's respectable and true to you. Thank you so much for sharing this story with us. I wish you the best of luck with your situation. Now, let's get into today's second story. When my wife and I got married, she knew I'd be making less money than her, but it never was an issue. I was and am a freelance animator. And she thought that was a cool career to pursue after we were married for 7 years. She came into the habit of having to return back to work a few hours after she'd gotten home. She always said it was either paper that needed to be signed before submission. Someone royally screwed up and she needed to fix it, or a co-worker was finished with their part now so she could finish what she needed to do before the deadline. The next morning, I never questioned what she told me she needed to do for work. I trusted her. We were married for 9 years. I was 36, she was 38. This returning to work habit started when she was 36. So for 2 years at this point, this time, when she left, everything changed. When she left to go back to work, she accidentally took my phone with her. We had really similar phone cases. I heard my wife's text tone go off, which was different from mine, and I knew instantly what happened. I was about to message her by texting my phone when I saw what another person texted her. They were only programmed as initials, but they asked, "Did he let you leave the house yet?" My heart fell down to my feet and my stomach came up to my throat. I hastily replied to this person saying, "Yep. And could you let her know she accidentally took her husband's phone with her?" This person replied by saying, "Wrong number." I called my own phone for hers and she answered it laughing, saying she realized what happened. Now I told her she didn't realize everything that happened. She was confused. So I told her the text she just got. She was silent. I could hear heavy breathing while she tried to figure out what to say. She finally suggested it was the wrong number, but she probably knew I was too smart for that. I told her this number was programmed as initials. I asked her who that person was and she was silent again. I told her she didn't need to come home again. I would have her brothers come get her stuff. She yelled in protest, but I hung up. Her brothers were going to be super disappointed in her. They were like another set of parents, but somehow worse because they were supposed to be her friends too. When I told them what happened, they both agreed to come over before my wife showed up. I scrolled through the messages as far as I could stand. This had been going on the entire time. She had this going back to work habit. She never went back to work every single time. She went to either his house or to a venue with him and then his house. I wanted to lock her out and never see her face again, but she had a key so I couldn't really keep her out. When she got there, I just told her to start packing. She was crying and begging me to at least let her explain. I told her she didn't need to explain anything. My heart was broken and I knew it was her fault and what she did to cause it. She went on to say that she felt like two different people. She said she loved me deeply, but also enjoyed seeing AP. She told me she would stop if it meant we could save our marriage. I asked her how long this had been going on, even though I figured it probably had been for 2 years already. She didn't want to answer me. Instead, she just swore it would end if I gave her another chance. I told her it was over. She'd been going behind my back and sleeping with another man for far too long for me to wrap my head around, and she played me like a fiddle. Just then her brothers arrived. I left them alone to talk while I packed my wife's clothes for her. I just wanted her out so I could start adjusting to being single again when they finally came in to help me. They looked very upset, but not as upset as my wife. It looked like after they knew what was going on, they told her there was no way they could defend her actions or convince me to give her a second chance. They helped me pack quickly. She barely helped, stopping often to blow her nose and sob. I asked her why she did this, wanting to know if I was undesirable in any way. She said marriage after a while became boring. And when AP showed her attention, she couldn't turn him away. I couldn't help but call her a few names. At this point, I said she didn't deserve to be married to anyone because a steady relationship is a luxury for the loyal spouse. Her brothers agreed. She said she didn't like being the breadwinner either. That got me. She told me at the start of our marriage that it didn't bother her at all and she only needed me to pay a few bills. Her money would enable us to have some occasional treats and splurging. This arrangement worked extremely well as far as I could tell. For 9 years without the income I provided, she wouldn't have the extra money to splurge, but she didn't see it that way. She felt like her money was providing the fund and didn't look at what I was taking care of. I told her to get out now and only her brothers were welcome to come back for her stuff. They almost had to carry my wife out of the house. She was so resistant to leave. I kept telling her I didn't want to see her. I didn't believe I could trust her ever again. Finally, she left with them. I was never told where she was staying, but she did try to apologize a lot over text. I think it was just because AP was moving 8 hours away and she wasn't welcome to come with him. The affair fog was wearing off and she was realizing how badly she messed up. I got to keep our house in the divorce, but I ended up renting it back to my ex-wife. It was pretty empowering to be her landlord. She managed to pay me rent really well, but she didn't have any extra spending money. As I predicted, it's up to me if I ever want to lower or raise her rent. But for now I'm just letting it be. I started listening to music on a run every day and it is very therapeutic. I hope you all never cheat on your partner or go through something like this. It's a really terrible thing, but anyone can survive it and come out stronger emotionally. Wow. I am so sorry this happened to you. A simple mistake by your wife exposed what she was hiding from you for so long. It isn't easy to go through this level of betrayal. It was no fault of yours. Your wife didn't value the relationship she had with you and she didn't try to openly communicate and remain honest with you. Marriages require some hard conversations, sometimes even the admission of feelings for another person. But if you truly love your spouse and want to fight this attraction, sometimes confiding in them is necessary so they can work with you to repair the relationship. If they sit down to talk about these things, they may realize that their spouse is already aware they're lacking in that category and they're willing to focus more energy on improving those things. On the other hand, the strained spouse may realize that these lacking qualities they see aren't really that important on a deeper level. For example, any physical features a spouse is lacking is not worth cheating over. If you've chosen to love your partner already, you've chosen to accept them regardless of what physical features they have. We appreciate you sharing your story with us. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.